Hello and welcome to Northwest Knitting. My name is Kathy and this is my knitting podcast where I talk to you about my knitting projects I'm thinking about doing, yarns that I like, and all my interests related to that. I am also very interested in all kinds of yarns, and my overall goal is to make a more sustainable wardrobe for myself. I hope you'll join me on this journey. If you're new here, very welcome to you, and I hope you can find something useful here. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for waiting for me while I was gone. We were in Ireland for more than about 32 days, and we left on April 18 and didn't come back until May 22nd. So it was a long trip. We had a great time. We went along the west coast of Ireland, and from the very southern part up to Malin Head in the Republic of Ireland, in Donegal. We didn't go to Northern Ireland, even though we were about 5 miles away, because our car insurance didn't cover us for Northern Ireland, and we had already paid an unbelievable amount for the insurance. So I hope on another trip to be able to see Northern Ireland. We had a great time. We rented a car the whole time, and really couldn't have seen what we wanted to see any other way. It was pretty challenging. My husband drove, and he adjusted pretty well to the driving on the left side of the road. Had some issues with the clutch, even though he's a very accomplished driver of standard cars, but there was something funny about our Renault that we were renting. So there were times when we're chanting, stay on the left, and he's, but he did great. And aside from the very narrow roads in some places where things got a little exciting, it went pretty well, and we got to see so much by having a car. We did learn, however, that there appears to be an age limit on how long you can, how old you can be when you rent cars, and I was a little stunned about that. So there's an actual finite period after which you might not be able to rent a car. So maybe at that point we'll switch to bus tours, huh? The people were invariably kind, often went out of their way to take us someplace if we were looking for something. They were just amazing, kind, polite, funny, witty. We met some wonderful people. We had some Airbnb hosts that were delightful. We'll never forget them. It was almost entirely rural trip. Many of our trips have been involved big cities, especially in Europe. But on this trip, we were almost always outside, except we spent 3 nights in Sligo, up in the north, and 2 nights at the end in Limerick, which is a pretty good sized city as well. So I did not enjoy the cities as much, although there's a nice energy there. But the rural areas, I felt like it's not forest bathing, because Ireland does not have many trees. It's only about, it used to be heavily forested historically, and now they only have about 10% of their land is covered with trees, but green, green, green all over, and I feel like I had green bathing, and I think it was really good for me to have that. it actually made me wonder if I shouldn't be living in a more rural area, although that doesn't make as much sense at this time of life. But anyway, I was glad to get home to my own garden, but lots of beautiful, beautiful country. We went to the Cliffs of Moher. We climbed up around Slieve League in Donegal, County of Donegal. We got to go to Skellig Island in Kerry. That was amazing. If you are on Instagram, you might check out my pictures, which are Northwest Knitting is my name, and I have some pictures of the trip on that. And we saw puffins very close up, really close. They were nesting, and they were just bold and brave. That there are a lot of times where those were the Cliffs of Moher and Slieve League and Skellig Michael were a lot of climbing. Many days we walked as many as 7 or 8 miles, so I was really tired, and I found that I did not do much knitting. So anyway, I don't want to talk the whole time about Ireland, but I will talk about some related things related to knitting and Ireland, and at the end I'll probably say a little bit more. Anyway, it was a really good trip. Population is very low in the rural areas. That's why it's so beautiful. I mean, that's the explanation really, is they just don't have as many people. Before the famine, starting in 1847, they had 8 million people, and now they have, on the whole island, they have about 7 million, and there's about 5 million in the Republic of Ireland. So they've never really recovered their population that they had back so long ago. So that's the trick. When you push a lot of people into a city, into a smaller space, there's less green. And so I thought about that a lot while I was on the trip. Okay, so I want to talk about knitting. Just to say what I'm wearing. I'm wearing my Edie, which is by Isabell Kraemer. I did it in 2018, and I used Hempathy yarn. I'll put my Ravelry link on down below in the show notes. I talk about this sweater in episode 2, so you could go check that out if you're interested. It's an older pattern, of course. It's very simple. It's really a great pattern for summer. I just washed this, and I think it had gotten almost an inch longer, and I just washed it, and I dried it halfway, and then I put it in the dryer with a towel, and it's great. It's just a fabulous yarn. My only hesitation about getting more of this yarn is the rayon viscose, which takes just so much to produce, but it's also a very significant amount of cotton and also hemp. And I have to say, it's a fabulous summer yarn. So anyway, I'd like to find some more yarn with hemp, some hemp cotton, but I'm sure it's the viscose that makes it more comfortable and more, it was my first plant fiber yarn, and it felt pretty stringy when I was knitting with it, but I think I'd enjoy it more now, but it's certainly fabulous to wear, so there's that. I have my tea with my yarn. I love this little, it's reflecting all the light right now, but I love this. I was happy to get home to my teacups and my good tea. I did not knit much. I was tired every night, but Dennis and I each read about 8 books. Some of the ones I read were very small. 2 of them were novellas, way more mysteries than I should have read, but I don't know what it was. Well, here's my theory. I brought yarn for accessories, and I'm just not as interested in accessories. And I think if I had brought maybe a something, maybe a summer top or something, I might have been more engaged with it. But I thought that was really interesting. Partly, one of the things I brought, oh, and I want to tell you what I wore. The weather until the last week really was pretty cool. I think it was mostly between 60 and 65 degrees almost the entire trip. I wore, the only coat I brought was my black raincoat, so I have a lot of pictures of me wearing my black raincoat. I often wore my Sophie scarf to brighten up the black raincoat, and also it was cool and I enjoyed having it. So while I was there, I worked on another Sophie shawl. I haven't blocked it yet, so it looks a little lumpy on the side, but this is I made it out of Berroco Ultra Alpaca. I love the croissant look here that everybody does. It's so funny. I really would have liked to have worn this while I was there, but by the time I finished it, it was starting to warm up. But it is a really useful thing, but I really got bored. So I'm not I'm never going to be the person who churns out, 50 hats for people or something really sweet and generous like that. I just I don't know, maybe if I found some woolly wormhead, really amazing hats with interesting patterns, I would. But anyway, I did wear this a little bit at the end, and I love it. It's half alpaca, half wool, and it's great, and I love the color. It was really good. So that was one thing I did, but honestly, not much was produced. I did half of a sock with my, what is this? You all know it's the West something Spinners. What is it? West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and I fell for the self-striping nature of it. It looks a little collegiate to me, but anyway, it's sweet. I'm just not a sock knitter, and I kind of I just wasn't very engaged. I did also bring with me enough yarn for a shawl, and I didn't really start working on it until I came back. So I'll tell you about that. The shawl is called Festival of Stitches, and it is by a designer named Lisa Hans, or Hannes. It was originally a mystery knit along, and so I'll put the link below of the shawl pattern, and also I'll show you so it's one of these things where you first you knit. So here's mine, and first you knit this it's basically like a striped triangle shawl, and you do that, and then you put the stitches on one side on hold, you pick up these stitches, and then you just do a little sweet little eyelet pattern there. And then this last bit I've been working on is almost like a, it's not a plaid, but it's really interesting. I've never done anything like that. It's all slip stitches. Then when I finish this, which I think maybe I am finished, I'm almost finished, it'll be that wide. And then I pick up stitches here, and I will again do this eyelet portion in the blue, and then I will do this again, but the next time you switch colors, so the little squares will be the white and the outline will be the dark brown. Now what I'm using, I showed you this before I went. This is my my friend Nancy makes, raises Shetland sheep about 30 miles away from me. And these are the two colors I'm using. The sheep are, it's a fingering weight. This sheep was clary and this one is teasel. I love this one. I am not a brown person, and I'm sure when I bought it, I thought it was more gray, but I love the yarn. And so I felt like the blue, which is a Jamieson and Smith, and the number is FC37, and of course, you can see I love that color. So anyway, that has been pretty engaging, but I'm a garment knitter. I love making garments. I have baby clothes I want to knit, and I'm just dying to get into some sweaters for myself and others. So I do want to tell you about some of my knitting experiences while I was there. Not a lot of yarn stores. I found one in Kinsale, and actually I don't have the yarn with me. There was a lot of yarn from Rowan that they had. There were a lot of yarns that I know I can get at home. I really enjoyed talking to the owner though, and she dyes some yarn. So I did buy one skein of her yarn that she had dyed, and that was really nice. I went to we were in a place called Ennistimon in County Clare, and it's a small village. I really love staying. We spent 4 nights, so that was the longest place we stayed anywhere. And we were on the second floor above a kind of a bakery breakfast lunch place. And from our apartment, there were window seats, and you could see almost everything going on this main street in town. I was ready to move in, and then you could walk 2 blocks in one direction and be out in the country looking at donkeys and walking down the river and everything. I really liked that place. While we were there, they had a festival. It was called Rekindle, a festival for lost skills. And it was very tiny. We walked less than a block from our apartment, and it was all happening at the courthouse. And there were people, there were like metal workers, there were spinners, some knitters, a woman making Dorset buttons, people doing who had their canned goods. It was a very small little event and just totally enjoyable. There were a lot of different people with crafts squeezed into the courthouse, and in the corner were some people playing music with a wonderful fiddle. It was really great. And outside of the courthouse were three women who were selling their knitted projects. And I really enjoyed talking to them. And one of them had a really interesting design where she had done some ribbing around the neck, and then followed by some garter stitch, so it rolled over. Then she picked up stitches from the rolled edge and did some more ribbing, and then did more, not garter, stockinette stitch, and it rolled over, and it just looked like almost like a welting or I-cord along there. It was really neat. Really enjoyed talking to them. They said that during COVID, they thought they'd knit all the time, but found that they needed each other to spur them on and encourage them, and so they were very happy to be back socializing with each other again. The other thing I did, and this was the big thing for me, is I went to, Dennis and I toured Donegal Yarns in Kilcar in County Donegal. And Donegal Yarns is a big factory. They make, they produce a lot of yarn. They do some of their own. They do some for Studio Donegal. They have they do bespoke projects. I saw them packaging some yarn for Isabell, I think, maybe you don't pronounce the G. Yarn. I know they do Carol Feller's new yarn, Blasta. So anyway, a lot of tweeds. They do just, not exclusively, but a lot of tweeds. And we had a wonderful tour by Maureen Carr. She calls her, Maureen is said, Maury is how she says her name, which was fun to know. I love that name, Maury. And she was lovely, and we learned so much about yarn. They mostly get their yarn from Australia and New Zealand, and they do have one kind they're using. About half of the yarn is made of Irish wool, but really, she said that Irish wool is starting to make a comeback, as I talked about in my last episode, but they are not, it's not soft enough for, most of the Irish wool is not soft enough. Okay, so we also toured Studio Donegal, which is just at the other side of the parking lot from Donegal Yarns. And that is more of a hand weaving place, but they also sell yarns, and which I think are all made at Donegal Yarns. I'm not entirely clear on the connection between them, but there is a big connection. Studio Donegal had a lot of woven objects for sale. We were able to go upstairs. They don't give tours, but you can go upstairs and watch the hand weavers, and that was really fun. They're weaving on really old looms. It was just really fun to talk to them and see what they're doing. So at Studio Donegal, there is a shop. You can buy on one side their woven objects, and then on the other they sell yarn. So obviously I was going to buy some yarn. I was a little disappointed in that I had read an article quite a few years ago about Studio Donegal's, the factory and also the shop, and my impression was that it was, and the pictures I saw, it looked like just filled with lots and lots and lots of yarn. And I think a number of years ago, from what I understood from a person who worked at the lunch place, she said she didn't even think they had a shop. It turns out they did have a shop, but they obviously had cleared out everything. It was bright and shiny and new, and there was a lot less yarn. So I didn't feel like I saw in the shop all the color options that they make, but obviously there were quite a few. So I got one. It's called Studio Donegal Yarns Tweed, 100% pure new wool, and spun by Donegal Yarns. So Donegal Yarns makes the yarn, but so maybe they're packaging it, or I don't know. But this is the color I chose. I told everybody I'm on a blue kick, so just buckle up. This will be the blue kick. That's my ranunculus over there. So anyway, I just love all the Tweety bits. And it was really fun seeing the tweed. Oh, and I forgot to show you. Hang on while I don't want to pause it. I'm so out of practice. I'll just end up closing us down. But okay, let me open this. And try not to make too much noise. Well, I'll show you what I got for Dennis, and then Dennis was there looking at the yarn with me, and we ended up getting some soft Donegal, Studio Donegal, soft Donegal for him. So I'm gonna make a sweater for him. The main color is this. They don't have names. It's a long shade. Shade number 2BC 5521, batch number 210. You know, not very romantic, but here we go. And soft Donegal is 100% merino wool, spun by Donegal Yarns, Kilcar. So he picked that for his main color. I've been thinking for ages of making him the Tracesta sweater by Jennifer Steingass, and then these are the contrasting colors. I don't know why I got white, actually, because I have so much white. But anyway, it'll all be the same weight. I really like this one quite a bit. And then we really struggled with that last contrast color, and I kind of talked him into this one. So I think I'll start working on the yoke and see how it goes. I've paused. At different times I've swatched for this project. I was going to do it in Let Lopey, which was the original yarn that Jennifer Steingass used, but it just seemed, why not make a yarn out of Irish wool for an Irish man? So he has citizenship and is mostly Irish, and we spent quite a bit of time in old burial grounds, church grounds, looking for names of his ancestors. So that was really fun. But what I'm trying to break into this thing for is, okay, so when we were on the tour, at one point, this is where Maury gave me this bunch, and this is where they put the tweed in. And look how bright that is. You can see a few little colors in there. Oh my gosh, this is just so bright. And then after, and this is just hanks that they cut off, I think, because they do some testing. But after they do some of the carding and mixing, it comes out to be this. This is way brighter, actually. This is pretty bright, and this is what it comes into. And it is it is one of their brighter yarns, but then you can see how the tweeds kind of, there's some tweeds in there, but overall the black just kind of tones it down, which is really interesting. So anyway, she just gave me these. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but anyway, so that was really fun, and we do have quite a lot of this for the main color. So anyway, sorry about the crumple there. It was just really fun. Other than that, I did go to a place called Irish Fiber Crafters, and there's a woman who is actually from the States, and she and her husband moved to Adair, and that was not too far from Galway, actually. And she I think, I don't know if she's raising her own sheep, but she is spinning yarn and selling some yarn. And the yarn I liked most, unfortunately, was exactly this color, which I was working on, and I just couldn't, I couldn't purchase it. But I did buy some hand spun yarn that was spun by some Ukrainian people. There's a lot of, Ireland took in quite a few Ukrainians, and I will show you that. It's, one of those, I have an awful lot of little bits of unspun yarn that I've purchased over the years, and I'd like to make some shawls putting some of that together, but it's real pretty, but not findable at the moment. So those were my knitting activities. Oh, one last thing is I was walking, we went to the Aran Islands, and I was walking in on Inishmore, which is one of the, it's smaller than Inishmore by quite a bit. Actually, almost every place on Inishmore you could walk to probably. We stayed with an amazing host there named Peric. He had lived his whole life on the island. It was just fascinating, and I was amazed at how informed everybody we talked to knows what's going on here politically more than we do. They are so informed and so interested and concerned about what's happening here. So anyway, that was a really interesting place. It's kind of designed like the shape of a hand. So like here's the harbor we were staying over here, and then there's a whole roads go off this way, and they don't join up really over, so they're kind of like spread out. And so we were walking down one of these roads, which is just as remote as you can possibly imagine, and so many rock walls, and we're just walking knowing we're going to have to turn around and come back pretty soon. And out just as remote and far as you can be, we pass a young couple, and I see that she's wearing a Lunenburg pullover designed by Amy Christophers, and she seemed pretty shy. She was from Newfoundland, and I said, "Oh my gosh, did you knit that sweater?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Wait a minute, I've knit that sweater. Isn't that a Lunenburg by Amy Christophers?" That she says, "Why, yes, it is." And she's from Newfoundland, and she had used all of the original colors from lichen and lace that were used by that. And I have to say, and I put this on Instagram, the colors that the designer used for the prototype looked really pretty darn good out on a remote island, on a remote road, on a remote island. It was really fun. So that was great. I'm looking at my yarn here and it's distracting me because of the white. There we go. The other thing I wanted to mention is that while we were there, I brought 2 sweaters. I brought my Lento by Jonna Haitala, and this was mohair held with Brooklyn Tweed Loft, which I've talked about in previous episodes, and I brought my ranunculus, which is made out of ultra Berroco, ultra alpaca, half wool, half alpaca. I wore these, I would say, 20 days out of the 32 days. I did bring other clothes. I did bring a cardigan sweater that I hadn't, very thin cardigan that I did not knit, and I did wear that on occasion. But these were, it was chilly most of the time. I wore these usually over a t-shirt. They do not, I have not washed them. I have not gleaned them or anything. I just wore them nonstop. I will say this one, I sometimes after I wear it, I feel like the elbows kind of stretch, but now I just had it folded up for a while. There is absolutely no sign of any wear on either of these, which I just think is awesome. And I mean, maybe this one has had a little bit of, a tiny bit of pilling, but they just look great. They are not dirty. They never got dirty. If I spilled anything on them, I just wiped it off. It's just, I mean, wool is where it's at. It's so cool. It's just like in the commercials they say for the, they don't smell. Really, I just really wanted everybody to know. Awesome for travel. It was so good. Anyway, what did I else want to say? I know I want to say more. Let me take a sip of tea and see where else I am. So I want to get back into knitting more. I'm interested in this shawl project, and that has kind of kept me busy as I had horrible jet lag. It took me a full 8 days, I think, and I talked to a friend who travels a lot, and he said it takes a day for every hour of difference between here and where you go, and it's about an 8-hour difference, and it took me 8 days. I was just exhausted every afternoon. I felt like it was the middle of the night. I just really took me a long time, waking up at 3 in the morning, which actually could happen anyway, but it was just I started thinking, am I sick? I took COVID tests. Anyway, I'm fine. I feel great. And, but jet lag, very bad. So I knitted this with the shawl was nice because it's pretty straightforward. And, but I'm getting ready to work on some projects, and one of them I wanted to mention was that I've had this project for a while that I want to make a cardigan out of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to veer off. It's a yoke. It's the Strum cardigan. I think it's by Rachel Hunter from 2020 Shetland Wool Week. And I've talked about it a lot. I want to make some changes though. And I thought maybe I would do colors a little differently. But when I experimented with it, I want to do this charcoal. It's a charcoal black number 81 that I finally got a cone of from Woolly Thistle. But I found that a lot of the subtle colors just totally disappear in the black. So that was really interesting. So now I have actually gotten some of the brighter colors. They're really not used that much, but it was really quite a lesson on how you blend colors for Shetland. But anyway, I made myself, or I'm making myself, my own shade card. So these are the colors I have so far from, some of these these two were cones right here. Wait a minute. These, I have a gray, this lighter blue, and navy, and now I have and it's time to use them. So I just thought, I have a number of different yarns where I've used quite a few. And the thing is, you think you're going to keep that ball of yarn, that little tiny bit that's remaining. But so far, I haven't been very good at doing that. So I thought, making my own shade card, I just used a hole punch. And Dennis had some cardstock. I just think I'll be able to set this aside and I won't have to go digging through everything to know what the colors are. So that was one idea. The other idea, let me show you. Okay, I bought some of these a while ago and I haven't used them yet. All right, I got them from Church Mouse back when Church Mouse was still there. And boy, am I kicking myself for not going into Church Mouse when I was on Bainbridge Island. But anyway, they sell these cards. You could make your own, but these are kind of fun. And so the idea is you can wind the yarn in the middle section and then write down below what it is. And I was thinking of going through, this might take more organization than I have in me, but I'd like to go through, and especially some of my favorite sweaters that I wear a lot, make sure that I do have extra yarn and save them on these cards. So I have 2 packets of these. I think they came in, well, there's only 5 in each packet. So we'll see. I don't think that I'd be doing it with every single thing I knit, but it would be really nice on, especially the sweaters that have really been successful that I expect to wear for a long time. It would be really nice to have that yarn in case of needing repairs. So that's just an idea. And I'm really excited about my shade card. I think I have quite a bit of Brooklyn tweed between loft and shelter, so I think I'll do one of those. And maybe for Let Lopey. But it's really easy to do, and there's room for growth here on the card, so fun idea. Okay, I'm getting near the end. I want to tell you about, I read several, there's one book I'll tell you about next time because I have forgotten the author, but there are 2 novellas that I read while I was in Ireland, and they're by an Irish author named Keegan. And she wrote, one book she wrote is Foster, and they ended up making a movie out of Foster, and it's a story of a girl who comes from a big family. Her family can't take care of her for the summer, and so they take her to I guess a relative, either an aunt or unclear. I can't remember if they really tell you explicitly. But she goes and lives with his family and has a very different experience than her own family. Anyway, they made a movie out of it called The Quiet Girl, and it's the first movie made in Irish. I don't know if it's the first ever, but anyway, first big movie, got a lot of attention, and the story is fabulous. It's really lovely. Claire Keegan also wrote another book called Some Things Like These, I believe was the name of it. Also a novella. So I read each of these in an afternoon. She is an absolutely gorgeous writer. She doesn't use one extra word. They're just spare and beautiful and gorgeous. With this, Some Things Like These, they're also planning a movie, and Cillian Murphy apparently is going to be involved in it. And he would be fabulous as the main character. The story, it's mostly about this man, and he has a family, and it's really focused on him. He was somebody, his mother had him out of wedlock, and he was raised by a Protestant woman took him and his mother in and made it possible for his mother to not give him up and avoid being sent to a Magdalene laundry. And the novella is really about this man as an adult with girls of his own, having some contact with a Magdalene laundry and seeing a young woman who appears to be neglected or mistreated, and the book is really about him. It's all from his perspective. It's really not about the Magdalene laundries per se, but it's him dealing with what he sees. And Claire Keegan the author has at the back of the book, she talks about the Magdalene laundries and points out that they did not close until 1995. So very interesting. The Catholic Church has really lost its political power in Ireland. Things have really changed quite a bit. So anyway, that was both of those are just beautiful books. I highly recommend them. Okay, we have our garden in, and mostly tomatoes, peppers, basil, some sugar snap peas I planted before I left. The kale is, we're near the end of the kale now. I'll be planting beans soon. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. Oh, a little parsley. Oh, we have a lot of raspberries, and blueberries are still pretty young. Some of them were not looking too good with the heat wave that happened while we were gone. But fortunately, some friends watered for us, and I have lots of strawberries. So I'm hoping that things will continue on and we don't have too much horrible wildfires, because I have found that it really slows down the growing. But so far, so good. It was very cool when we came home, so we got to ease into summer, but it's going to be close to 80 today and get a little hotter in the coming days. So next week we are going to California for my dad's 100th birthday. So next time I see you, I will, that will be already experienced, and I'll report back on that. Dad's in pretty good shape, except for his vision. So looking forward to seeing family and for that event. Anyway, so I think that is all I have for you today, and I hope you're doing well. If you have any new knits that you'd like to share with me, I'd really love to hear about it. There's a new Boyland Knitworks pattern that's coming out, and the little tidbits I've seen, the teasers for the yoke, are very tempting, even though I would not want to make it out of plant fibers, but boy, I'd sure like to make that. So that is a very tempting thing, and that will come out by the time I see you next. That will be out. So that will be tempting. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. I hope things are going nicely, that you're enjoying summer, and I'm looking forward to talking to you next time. Thanks so much for listening, and happy knitting.